Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. The Meshery development meeting is getting kicked off. A couple of housekeeping items. There's a few folks who send regrets today, and maybe we'll note a couple of them down. For those who aren't sending regrets but are here, please list your name in the meeting minutes. You might regret that you actually came. I don't know. We'll see. So Aditya Chatterjee is one of those individuals. A lot of times he'll host this call. That hosting role that I'll perform today is rotational. So if you want to host, do so. Just let me know. Just let Aditya know, let one of the community managers know, let one of the maintainers know. Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a couple of topics lined up today. We also, as we get the meeting rolling, we generally take a look at whether or not there's anyone new on this call for the first time, and ask them to say hi and get introduced. And so take a moment, look around, look at the person next to you. Do you recognize them? If you don't, encourage them to say hi. Has everyone that's on this call right now introduced themselves on this call right now? And I say it like that because we have a lot of different meetings on different topics. And so there's a different audience sometimes, different people show up. So it's always good to introduce on that call. So just to help prod folks, just in case. So Aman and MD, have you guys both introduced on this call before? Yep, Aman.
Yes, I had introduced earlier.
Nice. Okay, very good. I know you were on the website's call this week as well. So yes. that was nice. Good commentary, by the way. So that was a rough Monday. It was that daylight savings just doesn't settle well when you spring forward. Anyway, nice to have you on this call. MD, have you introduced before? Shabazz. Alam. And by the way, MD, if you're having problems with your audio, feel free to use the chat to just say hi. I don't know if you want to add your, oops, he dropped. He's probably having audio challenges, so he'll be back. Okay, great. Well, let's go over a couple of things, just a quick review of the agenda and then ask in case there's additional agenda items. So Ashish is going to talk about a couple of topics, some things that we've got going on with adapters, end-to-end tests. Mario has a couple of topics in there. Gaurav is going to talk about things that are coming up in the .7 release. There's a lot, notably around what ends up being kind of an overhaul of Meshery's UI. So he'll talk about that. Pranav has been working on an extension point, refactoring it. Ashish has got some suggestions about capabilities that Meshery has. If MD comes back, maybe we'll get on, talk about his some Cypress testing that he's doing. And lastly, we'll talk about a forthcoming an adapter that's in the alpha state. Did we miss anything? Sikranda, Mr. Hamza, do we want to talk about some of the work that you've done? I don't remember if any of your PRs are currently under review or if they've already merged. But this could be a good time to chat about them. So drop it in if you'd like to. And with that, we'll see if we get through the whole agenda. I think that we will. Abhi, if you happen to have anything, now's a good time to give that some thought. And we'll roll in. Yeah. And we'll roll into Ashish. You want to kick us off? Oh, wait, hold on.
Sure.
Oh, wait. We do have someone new on the call today, and her name is Mario Mini Mario. And
Hi, my name is Frida.
oh, say it again.
Frida with an F.
Oh, very good. She might take the cake for the cutest person that we've had on this call. Hello, hola,
Hola.
buenos dias. Hello.
That's Uncle Lee.
Yeah, with the freckles and the the pale skin. Nice. Oh, that's great. All right. Ashish, if you want to take us through some items.
Yeah, sure. Although I think all the attention has gone to someone else, so I hope.
Yeah, she stole the show. She's a cutie.
Yeah. So, assuming that you can see my screen, ask that basically the schema that Kubernetes components register. There we have basically the keys are cluttered like this, and the ask was to have some spacing kind of. So this is just like Lee suggested. It is kind of it happens at the source. So when the components register themselves, they register with the spacing. So it happens as close to the generation as possible. And the validation in the pattern engine happens against the spaced out things. And just before passing these to Kubernetes, I de-prettify them, or basically you can say that I remove the spaces again so that it can be read by Kubernetes. So yeah, that was a small change. The PR is up. Other than, if anyone has a Lee, do you have a comment on this, or should I go to the next thing?
Yeah, there's just one other comment, and this was something that I don't know that I had expressed as we were kind of discussing the challenge. Well, the challenge around ID identifiers and display names. So there's one. This looks pretty great. There's one aspect to this that settles slightly uneasily, and that is that we are still in a situation where the display names are also used as the identifiers. Granted, the PR that you have up prettifies them so that they can be displayed to humans and read by humans. And then when that information is passed back to Meshery for processing, you take out the white space and make it as it were originally. The concern is that that leaves room for error, or leaves room, like we're still in the situation where we're using IDs for names, which inevitably will lead us to.
Actually, I had dropped off. My internet had dropped, so last 30 seconds I couldn't hear you. So can you?
Yeah, to be more concise, we're still in that's great. It looks good. We're still in the situation where we have names that are being used as identifiers, and inevitably we'll get in trouble. What would it look like if you do the same thing that you're doing now, but you were to add an attribute for display name? And I guess yeah. And part of where your mind might go is like, okay, well, but where would we store that? And this might lead to a little bit of a longer discussion. And because it might be a longer discussion, it might be that we should press forth with, well, I don't know if we should press forth with what you have and then kind of discuss where to store that metadata. Like we've kind of talked about the mesh model and how that changes, is changing so that there are additional custom components. So as I make that suggestion, is that exactly what comes to your mind? Is like, okay, where would we store that though?
Yeah, like storing that as a field would be a problem during validation stage because yeah, because RGSF, the way RGSF library works is that yeah, I'll have to think a little bit about this before I actually comment on this thing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there can be some caveats behind this which I'm not seeing right now.
Yeah, makes sense. As you think about it, think about it from this vantage point, if you would, which is the prettified name. Or think about it from this perspective, that the component that is being generated with the identifier, the name that's the identifier, that goes unchanged. That the way that the system works stays as is, like operationally, but that there's an additional attribute, display name, that's added, that's additive to this and is on the side and is only used for display purposes. The rest of the operational infrastructure remains the same.
Actually, it will depend upon how RGSF library internally does things, because basically if we add another field, it would display that as well on the form. So it would be hard to hide that extra field in the RGSF form.
Yeah, right. And I know that that there'll be more consideration around these thoughts, but to advance that thought, it would be that this would be a universal attribute for every component, that it would have this additional field. And as such, it would have kind of special rules around it for not displaying it as an input field, but just using it as a descriptor. So.
Okay. I'll suggest you go ahead and write this, or write your thoughts on some specs, so that, after this PRS merge, that conversation can continue on the spec.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
do me, by the way, do me a favor, help me get that done, if you would. Help me write that out. Don't put the work on me, please.
Okay.
But yeah, the goal, the goal is, hey, show humans grammatically correct things, that they're understandable. Show the system, the machines, the unique identifiers. Don't use identifiers as things that we necessarily display, or things that we use as the name in the display.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely help write up the spec. I just mean, don't wait on me.
Okay.
But that's great. By the way, thanks for addressing that so quickly. But does anybody else have comments there? So we've got this. There's kind of this perpetual challenge in computers and computer science about having an object and it having a name, that name being unique or not. Like, how do you reference the thing? How do you reference that object? What are you calling it? And so often what you're calling it is what software ends up showing to the users. And so often that gets us software in trouble one way or the other. It's either it gets the software in trouble because the pretty names aren't unique. Like, who else can have, the beginner 86 on github.com? Only one person in the world, right? That's really frustrating, because that's the one that I wanted. And if they had only made it namespaced it, or allowed you to have an identifier that was separate from your display name, that would be possible. And so that's the challenge with a system like that, is like, well, somebody else got the F5 handle, and so F5, too bad. It's like, wow, that's pretty terrible. Like, and so anyway, there's the challenge on one side. The other side of the challenge is showing users IDs. So yeah.
So we want it to be human readable, and we want to avoid issues in which a display name is assigned by a user, and then it's somehow has invalid characters that cause the system to just panic, right?
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you basically, every time that you're dealing with an object, you basically always want to have like at least two attributes, an identifier, which is unique, globally and universally unique, ideally. And then even if you're namespacing that identifier some other way, it's still nice to have a single entity, a single ID, and then metadata or attributes about that, one of which is a display name or a pretty name or a description or a, yeah. Like the problem with the description, I take that back, not a description. A description would be a third thing, because usually a description is not the same thing as a name being concise.
So a display name and an identifier.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yep. So to Ashish's point, like, I think your point mostly, Ashish, was like, that makes some sense on the surface. We should probably write that down to really hammer it out. So, yeah. Nice. Thank you, Ashish.
Okay, can I move on to the next topic?
If you would.
Yeah, okay. So there is an open call for we had basic end-to-end tests in all of our adapters, which basically what they do is, if I go over this one end-to-end test in Istio, they basically they set a pattern file, they run that pattern file in mesh with Meshery and adapter running, and they capture the result and they update the docs. So there's a 3-step process. So currently we are doing this 3-step process for basic service mesh installation. And if I go down here, we're doing it for a service mesh with add-ons like Grafana and Prometheus. And we're using these 2 pattern files that you can see here, deploy.yaml, deploy with add-ons.yaml. We need to enhance these tests and add some more things like book info app. So for example, we already have a pattern that does just that. So this pattern in service mesh pattern samples installs your service mesh Istio control plane, and then after that is installed, it installs a book info app. So the ask can be that here, just like we have these the 3 steps for each of the two things, like so vanilla service mesh installation and service mesh installation with add-ons. We can have one more where we would test something like test with service mesh and let's say book info app. So the only change there would be that instead of when you'll be setting the pattern file in here inside of the install, you'll add one more deploy bookinfo.yaml, and that would be exactly this one. And from there is almost just a copy paste. So you just have to, wherever you find here that deploy, for example, wherever you find here that deploy.yaml, you'll do deploy bookinfo. Basically, you'll go with this pattern and then as you can see here, there are expected pods. So for example, when you're installing with add-ons, so the expected pods is Istio, Egress, and Ingress, Grafana, Prometheus. So you'll have to check. So for example, when you'll be installing your book info app, the expected pods would be something like reviews and ratings and in their appropriate namespaces. So the template is there and the pattern file is there, which to apply. If anyone is interested, you can hit me on you can ping me on Slack. I can help you move forward with this thing, and we want this thing to propagate through all of the adapters, not just the Istio adapter, but Istio adapter is always a good start so that everything follows from here. So if anyone is interested in writing this end-to-end, adding stuff in this end-to-end test, ping me on Slack or ping basically in Meshery CI channel. You can add a message, or I will add a message. You can comment on that, or you can reply on that, and I'll assign a task to you. And any confusions would be clear on that task. So that was about a call for E2E test.
Wait, so just before we move on, I mean, let's give folks a chance to. Anybody want to volunteer here? So Aditya, I think this is probably not your first focus, but I think this is on your midterm list of areas to jump into. Do you remember? Aditya Alpha. There is audio issues happening. Raj, I don't know, this might be something for you to take a look at, or Sikranda.
Yeah, I might have a look at this. Yeah, I was working on another PR which is like currently in progress. So yeah, parallelly, I think that can go on.
Yeah, this is there's a lot of power inside of the workflows, inside of the GitHub workflows in this case. And yeah, as a matter of fact, Aditya, I remember now, you were going to work toward a summarization in the compatibility matrix. Any progress to report? The Omega. Okay, maybe he's stepped away. Okay, good. Well, Root Raj, thanks for that. That's so Ashish, I'm sure you'll follow up with Root Raj.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah. Nice. Okay. Ashish, you've got one more topic a little later.
Actually, I removed it. It was related to the current topic. Basically, the small thing that I wanted to mention, a small caveat was basically, if you want to test out something like book info application, anything which has Kubernetes components within it, then we would need the Kubernetes components to be registered with the Meshery server inside of the workflow. But the thing is that that happens whenever a Kubernetes context is detected, and that happens whenever a request goes through your middleware for the first time. And when you have your Meshery server loaded up, Meshery server, when you start your Meshery server, and no request comes along, goes through the middleware, your Kate's contexts are not loaded. So your thing, basically nothing is registered. Basically the Kubernetes components are not registered. So if you try to deploy a pattern file which has Kubernetes components in it, that request would fail, although that request would trigger that component generation. So I just wanted to ask Piyush, but I guess Piyush is not here, that is there an existing command in mesheryctl which I'll just basically, if I'll that command can help me to make a first request that goes through that middleware, so that I can trigger that component generation, the first request that can go through that. Or the other hack can be that I make 2 pattern apply requests. The first one will fail definitely, but it would trigger that component generation, and after a while I go with the second thing. But that's kind of a hack. So I wanted to ask Piyush, but I think he's not here. So that was that small topic at the bottom.
Now, is that for, okay, can you add that back? Because that requires some discussion. Actually, the sequence by which you were just describing sounds a little bit off. Like the ask of what you're asking to do is maybe treating the symptom, and the root cause, that sequence probably, that system sequence probably needs to change. So we'll talk about that. But on end-to-end tests, Mario, you had, I think, some topics that fit into end-to-end tests. Oh yeah, Mario had to step away. Oh,
I'm here.
oh okay.
Yep. So there's a bit more details in the PR, but basically there's this. So there's a test case in our Meshery test plan spreadsheet about relating to that specific adapter and that specific card. So I'm a bit confused by the fact that we're adding a test to make sure that for the console configuration, that card isn't present. Maybe just requires some clarification, but
Yeah.
So the card's not supposed to be there, and that's what the test is testing, which is part of why it's failing. But there is a test case defined that relates to that card. So I'm a bit confused as to.
Yeah, no, this apply service mesh configuration. This should be a universally supported operation for every adapter. And this is the operation that takes your Kubernetes manifest and applies it or removes it. And so, yeah, every adapter should support this.
There could be a good reason. Maybe Abhishek has there's some more context that he could add.
Yeah, actually, I just removed. I remember it from my PR. I actually I wrote that it should not have apply service mesh configuration because in the current UI it is not having it. I don't know the reason behind the adapters not supporting the command. It actually doesn't support at the current time. So applying custom service mesh configuration. So probably yeah. So once we have it, so we'll have it in the UI also. But as Lee told that it is something that is like required. So probably have to fix it early.
Okay, so then we'll update the test so that can you go to the life cycle? Where was it? The configuration.
Yeah, go to lifecycle console, and from the drop down click console, and you will see only 4 dialog. Unlike history, you will see 5. That was the one dialog that was missing is
Okay, you know what? Yep, I take my words back. It's not apply service mesh configuration that is the universal. It's apply custom configuration.
Okay.
So the words are the name, and this is in part why we need to do an overhaul of the UI. But every adapter should allow you to drop in a Kubernetes manifest and apply it to whatever namespace that you would like to. Or to do the same thing by taking YAML and removing or deleting it. So, and
okay, makes more sense now.
But the specific, the other category of operations, yeah, I guess or not, I guess but yeah, not all adapters support specific service mesh configurations. I think that some of the examples under there were things like turning on MTLS, things like that, I believe. Yeah.
And going back to the end-to-end test, like that PR, I think that the reason it's failing is that there could be some configuration that's not right. That's PR 5121, right? Where is that?
yeah. You can click on authors, select me.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think you
author.
were talking about that. Yeah.
Sure.
From the
Author.
yeah. Abhishek, number four from top. Yeah,
so I think because I see that there's failing
second, yeah.
check. So can we go to the checks?
You know what? Here,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you guys drive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Abhishek can drive. Then no problem.
Okay. Hold on. Here, as soon as you share, I'll tell you where to put your mouse. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. So
It's the second one down. Okay. Yeah. If you go down to the checks.
yeah.
So
you're
yeah,
talking about iterators.
I think that the reason that's failing is because somehow during the CI run, it's not configured correctly, because I experienced the same error. But when I looked at I did the npm run sci open. So I noticed that even though the test thinks it's doing from a link and from a button navigation, it's actually not in the correct page. So it's not an actual bug. If I'm interpreting correctly, it's more of a configuration problem. Some prerequisites not in place. In both CI environment and in my local environment, my machine.
So So first of all, actually there is a bug that is stopping this. So that is visit console by link. So when you visit console by link, it doesn't actually visit there. So I think I demoed it in the previous call too.
Oh,
So
you did.
that was one fix. Yeah. So once we did it, so these two things will be automatically fixed. Like the tests are like intact and they are checking the correct things. So other than that, sometime it does work. By the way, I don't know why, but in your local environment, it may sometime work. And I didn't really get the reason of. So yeah.
In my case, I think that the adapter isn't enabled. So that might be one part of the problem on my side. So I'll try again once I make sure that's enabled. And so then I want to know, like, let's say it's configured correctly. So that card is not there, right? So that's not part of a bug is that correct?
No, that's not a part of the bug right now.
So that's working properly.
We have one
that's what I
card
mean.
missing here.
My question
In the
is,
console, we have one.
So in the correct page, the card isn't there, and that's what we want, and that's okay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. At least for now.
Sure, of course. Yeah, we'll keep working on this. Yeah, I'll support Abhishek as I can. And
thanks.
another thing is, so I would just like to define the scope of the PR. Like it's just, okay, add some end-to-end tests. But maybe it has been talked and maybe I wasn't part of that discussion or I wasn't paying that much attention. Like, can we prioritize what test to add and then maybe add that to the description or something of the PR so that we can like have laser focus on what we want. So that basically, sorry for the crying, so that we can just make sure that test is working correctly, like that test or specific tests. Like it's fine, just so that it's so that we're clear what's most important to implement.
Yeah. So actually great. So I'll add the description. By the way, for the things that are working right now, we can have, we can try to just click on button, deploy things, and that's how we will be going forward. Actually, I'll add more description here, like the number of items, 1, 2, 3, 4 pointers, and actually we can work together on this to push it forward.
Okay, sounds good, because if we're talking about end-to-end test, like the current one, like it's not bad because it's doing some checks, but I'm not sure if it's covering a full end-to-end scenario, like
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's more to it, right? Like what the
actually,
plan, I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah, actually it doesn't. So you are right there, and it's because a few bugs there that has been listed here, and we just need to clear it off. So once these things are done, so we are out of friction, so we can do anything. We have to just locate the button ID and just click on it, and it will deploy and just write the expectations of our button.
Okay. Yep, sounds good. I did left a couple of comments in the PR. I'm sure they're just simple things to address. So I'm not sure we have to cover them right now in the call, but not sure. Thinking that the way that the test is written is not bad. At least for me, it was a bit hard to understand because like there's so many functions being defined, and maybe at least the naming could be a bit more consistent. I don't know, like, or maybe it's just me that I'm not familiar with the different adapters yet.
No.
But usually I know we're trying to reuse code, but maybe making it a bit more those functions a bit closer to what they're being like where they're being used, or I don't know, but that just personal opinion. So that's why I didn't add to the PR. But anyways,
Yeah, those are great opinion. And actually, yeah, there's a lot to learn from, because I'm writing my first test there. So
sure, you're doing
there's
good.
quite possible that, yeah, that may be bad. So don't try.
No
Yeah,
problem.
don't hesitate to point out mistakes. We'll have this.
That's great.
By the way, your suggestions are great. I'll implement it by today.
Sure.
Tomorrow.
Sure. I know we need time to think like what's the scenario we want to focus on, like make sure we cover something that the user really values, as it should work as expected, and specifically to this the life cycle. So it's all like an entire functional area. So it's not something to answer right now, but I'm sure we can keep that discussion ongoing so we can make progress on that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for getting in.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. By the way, if this discussion is like over, so I have the next item here.
Yeah, Abhi, just before you move on, this is a good. Is everyone seeing the test plan that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with Abhi about Mario's comments being well placed about just organization, or actually, I mean, it's one of the best questions that someone can ask. Not or in general, like as you're working on anything, it's sort of like which is just what's the priority, or like, hey, what's the priority, and how are these organized? And the question is like, implicit to the question is the phrase like, so that I can help in the best of ways. And that's what Mario's, goal is, that clarification that he's asking for. And my mind immediately go, and so today the tool that we're using to try to capture and articulate that and capture it in granular form is this spreadsheet. Maybe eventually it's not the tool. I don't know. It strikes me that, like to Mario's example, which is a good example, he was just suggesting that maybe the lifecycle management stuff, maybe that's the big priority, because that's what a lot of people want to do, is install a mesh. And we were just talking about the Consul adapter, and so I get drawn to this line just as an example of like the lists of tests that are within here, and our overarching goal to, what are these two columns? It's been a while. We should probably freeze this row, but covered in integration test, covered in end-to-end tests. And so it was marked, it was row 118, I think. Right now it's marked as yes, covered in end-to-end tests. It's like, well, yes, that was true at the time. The Consul adapter specifically has a few additional, it's the only adapter that uses BATS, this Bash automated testing system, I think is the name of, it's like a framework around Bash to be able to run many scripts in parallel and so the maintainer at the time, Michael, had added a set of Bash scripts or BATS tests to the Consul adapter, and they've been running well for about a year. And I think now they're starting to fall over, just because, like everything, they need maintenance. As we've shifted away from BATS and into GitHub workflows and GitHub actions, and it's not the BATS tests were being called from within GitHub workflow, but we've kind of shifted away from that approach to eating our own dog food or drinking our own champagne, which is, we have a few different GitHub actions. Those actions perform end-to-end things. It'll perform, a performance test or whatever they do. And so shifting away from BATS for the Consul adapter is an open area of need. And shifting into writing more of these end-to-end tests. And to Mario's question is like, okay, great. Like, so what are those and where should they? Some of the discussion that you guys were just having was like driving those end-to-end tests from Cypress as the tool, which from Cypress / Meshery UI, like from that vantage point, from that user perspective.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cypress browser, Meshery UI, we're kind of like adding that to the full scope of moving parts we're testing, right?
Yeah.
In conjunction with the rest.
So actually, Mario, this is a good thing to, so. No, okay. Yep, right. Anyway, I just wanted to like highlight, I don't think that we give enough time to this spreadsheet. Like I think that this is in part the answer to what you were asking. And and it's just ready for you to own it, like massage it.
Of course. Actually, trying to own it. Can you go to line 138?
Yeah.
That's actually the, where is it? That's what caused like all the confusion. Like probably at some point, that was true. Like that card being there for Consul, or maybe it was just like some, oh, we're copying pasting everything, like, but maybe that now that we're like drilling into it, yeah, cool. So that's okay. That's
yeah, totally. It was a copy and paste. I'm sure.
No, it's no problem. I want to own this, but I don't want to remove things without certainty. So this conversation, I think it's very helpful. So yeah, basically that's one. Okay. So despite that, for Consul, that's like, okay. I think we can like refine the spreadsheet as we go, right?
Yeah, please do. I don't think that I don't think that there are, ultimately, it would be nice if when someone makes a change, that if there are toes being stepped on, that it's your toes that they're stepping on. So
mine specifically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yours and Ashish's, like.
Okay.
between the two of you guys, that I guess what I'm trying to say is there aren't toes in this right now, so it's kind of hard to step on anyone's toes.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
That's great. Abhi, well, does anyone else? So Sakranda and Rutraj and others, this is kind of more on that ETE testing, end-to-end testing. And so Sakranda, I don't know if this is an area of interest for you or not.
It sounds interesting, but if I'm to collaborate with someone, I can take it on, but alone, it might take me quite a while to implement it.
Oh, yeah, totally. Can I add something? Sorry to interrupt. Well, at my opinion, this kind of artifact, like it is kind of like a whole, like too much to take in. But I think if we use it as a reference, like just a tool, as we go, there's different things we're collaborating or contributing, to implement, to refine, and keeping the quality built in, in mind. This is something we can reference from time to time, even when we're collaborating. And I'm sure we can focus on like adding more and more tests. So this, what I'm trying to say is this will start to make more sense. Like, I felt like intimidated when the first time I saw this spreadsheet. So I'm totally there with you.
Yeah, exactly. Now you know the position I'm in. But in case I get someone to like usher me into this, like through this first one, then I know it will get easier. But if I'm on my own, it will take me quite a while to figure it out.
Oh yeah, I think no one's expecting you to do it alone. So like anything questions you have, like feel free to just shoot them in Slack or wherever you feel comfortable.
Sure. My fingertips are available. I will make sure I'll reach out to you.
Sure. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I also would I have the similar views. So looking at that spreadsheet is kind of intimidating. So I'll ping Ashish. We talked about that end-to-end test. Um, and yeah, I'll ask him what the tasks and get more context.
Excellent. You look terrified, Lee. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm
No,
trying to.
don't do that, dude.
What happened? I'm trying to share the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, your screen sharing just died.
Yeah, I couldn't find the desktop. I was gonna. I don't know if Ashish had to drop. Yeah, he did. And so let me do his job for him, and that is to say for Rudraj and Sequanda in specific, like if you're like me in some ways, maybe like if I were to go to
10-minute mark.
Yeah, wait, say it in the back. Yeah.
The 10-minute mark, no
Oh,
pressure.
10 minute. Oh, yeah. Is very, very quickly what you do is for me, I just go to look at what's the existing example and not try to create something from scratch, but just kind of digest what's the current end-to-end test that's running. In this case, it's for the Meshery adapter. It's E2E tests, and like, okay, which ones are running? What is it? To basically digest what it's okay. So it's deploying Istio. It's expecting pods with these names to be present at the end. So this is essentially the assertion statement. It will assert that these 3 pods are up and running at the end. Okay. And so anyway, just building off of this to say, okay, the next test to be done is a sample app. It's like, she's like deploying Istio like this is, and then also deploying a sample app. And so do me this favor, ask Ashish to sketch, or when do we have the next build and release meeting? Is that this week? What is today? Today's the 16th. So it's not this week, it's next week. But so in the meantime, like I would ask for a session on examples of what how to build those tests. And they're pretty interesting. So
I have a question. Hopefully this is not like I'm not interrupting
oh yeah.
flow. It just occurred to me. So we have YAML files for end-to-end tests for adapters, and it's fine because Meshery just interacts with them, and the adapter like handles working with a specific mesh, correct?
Right.
So we're kind of like it's a good place to do end-to-end stuff too. Like maybe there's more to it in higher places, but what about would it make sense to look for a way to have some Golang or JavaScript, like something that can help us use an editor and that IntelliSense autocomplete? Like, I think the challenge with those YAML files is that we kind of need to memorize the structure of the YAML. YAML is supposed to be like easy for humans, but it tends to be unwieldy, if you ask me. Maybe I'm not the only one thinking that. Am I?
Yeah. No,
so basically, if we find a way to do those kind of tests in a language that can help an editor to provide like support, maybe some like static typing or errors, squiggly lines, we hate them, but at least we know we're doing something wrong at that point. And then, of course, we would need to still have context about, okay, what are the pods we expect and some more things. But I think at least for a test developer, whoever develops that test, like not a specific role, but whoever, it might be a good investment so that we can, have more hands on that.
yeah. Yeah. To start with, having documentation about what those YAML files do, about what those workflows do, is a good starting point.
Yeah, totally.
And inside the test plan, inside this spreadsheet, there's another sheet, another tab sheet, automated tests. So this isn't the itemization, a high-level itemization, a high-level documentation of the different workflows that run. I don't think it says, I think this is only from the perspective of Meshery, that repo, and we should probably clarify. But this is a great place to go digest what the workflows are, what their purpose is, what are they actually doing, what they're actually testing, whether or not they can start by themselves or they get kicked off from a different workflow, when they run, like in part because, yeah, I mean, so this is one of those things that there's a little bit of, so this is related to what Mario was saying, but like just at a high level, if you understand like, oh, hey, this particular workflow is for this purpose, great. And then there's the whole problem of what Mario was saying, which is like, okay, within that workflow, the YAML that's written, what does it do? That there's a second step of kind of documentation that needs to happen there. To Mario's point, another thing that probably needs to happen is for those that dig their heels into the build and release process, there's an overarching perspective that we need to come together about what are the areas under test, how are they being tested, and when, and do we have a bunch of duplication? Do we have a bunch of underlap? Kind of another related, a tangential thing, but yeah, describing documentation about the YAML that I was just showing, like because yeah, it is readable, but I mean, you can read it, but you don't necessarily know like what, like where does this link to? Like someone just made up this value, like, and so what does that actually mean? Where is that being interpreted? And so yeah, it gets a little, and like in this case, it's getting interpreted by this other workflow. So I'm in the Meshery Istio repo. I'm looking at a workflow inside the Istio, the adapter repo, and this end-to-end workflow, this workflow reuses another workflow because we have 10 adapters, and so we have just a bunch, instead of duplicating the YAML across them all, there's a central workflow that's reused. And so that's this central workflow here. Okay, so this is a good one to digest. And yeah, it'll take a little bit of, this is why we should have a session on this. Like we should, if we don't get a session going before the next build and release call, like what a great set of topics for that build and release call to really
nail it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's some, so Aditya Alpha, if you're on, part of what we were saying earlier on the call is that the output of these end-to-end tests, the results, they get published into Meshery docs. And Aditya is to help summarize
the compatibility metrics.
Yeah, because there's a ton of, so coming out of those end-to-end tests, here's an example of one that was run. And actually it turns out to be the Istio adapter. That's weird. So the test was run, and this is coming right out of that YAML that we were just looking at. Actually, there's Istio-D, there's the ingret. This is exactly what we were just looking at. And the results for this particular run were passing, that this pod came up, and that's as far as the test takes it. And okay, what Minikube was spun up during that time frame, this one, so here's all the details. If you want to get more details, you can if you want to get, Alpha, the structure of this page is such that there's an integration test section. And within this section, there should be an entry for each Meshery component. So one entry for Istio, Kuma, Linkerd, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I think it's one entry for Edge and for stable. So I take it back, 2 entries per component, one for Edge, one for stable. And if you want to look at the historical test results for a component for that release channel, you can come here to see all the historical ones because they get built and run fairly frequently. And so over time, how have they been doing? And this is great. Like this is, this really helped, we've got a great project. Now, to some people who come look at this, they're like, all I wanted to know was, is Meshery compatible with Kubernetes 122? Like, and I can't and so your goal is to create a new section, not called above integration tests. That's a compatibility matrix that takes, that summarizes the data from here saying, just a brief, it's a much briefer summary saying, here's the systems that Meshery is compatible with, Istio 113.2, Istio 113.2 through 1.9 or whatever that is, Kuma 1.5, like to summarize all that and say, yeah. So because the integration test results is more for the folks that are on this call, the contributors, and the compatibility matrix is more for users.
One question. I hope we have time. Okay, no, but I just saw that one of those tests failed in the past. What I'll do is that, I think there's value in looking at those failures and seeing, well, why is it failing? Like that helps a lot understand what's being tested and the quality of the test. It's not just like see it pass every time. It's about what does it uncover? Like, is a failed output really finding a bug, or is it just like, some interface not being compatible? Like, I think that I'll do that like offline, just for the sake of time. But yeah, like just not going with the false sense of security that sometimes like green gives us, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, they're very, just the fact that Istio-D like using that example as a pod, just the fact that Istio-D is present doesn't necessarily mean that Meshery is going to be successful managing its life cycle ongoing. But it's a good step. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So
And something else, there is like a PR, I'm sorry, an issue. Yeah, it's a PR open for a CI problem. You just tagged me, Lee. So I was just suggesting that if we could get some folks with other OSs to try to do an npm install and just make sure that this doesn't introduce other issues. It's for the FS events, that problem. So looks like that fixes. I mean, that package log was huge. I wasn't able to find the lines that you said. And just the question would be, did you added it like by hand, or is there a specific command?
By hand, yeah. And then when I ran the build scripts, it ended up adding like a ton of, all those lines. And so.
Okay, got it. But yeah, maybe just like, is there someone who has Windows at Linux based OS and could just try that operation locally? We just want to make sure we're not breaking the UI for someone else.
Yeah, it's it's a good. Yeah, sure, sounds good.
Okay, yeah, I'll add a link in Slack just to ask for that help from other people.
Yeah, good. I'm trying to think of who has Windows.
Yeah, I don't have an idea, so we'll just post that, and if nobody answers, we'll just I'll let them know. we might break something for them, so it's better to like be proactive, right?
Yeah.
Sounds great. That's all.
Husseina, I got your note. Thank you for that. Husseina, that reminds me, we have some credits on Azure. So to the extent that we were to do something with AKS, getting you some access, free access is easier.
I'm up for AKS as well. Use it on my job, so it'd be good to get more hands-on.
Yeah.
Let me know.
then I will, like, because we've got an outstanding, yeah, we've got quite a few credits, excuse me, that they've offered up, and we just haven't like taken the time to do it because.
More
Okay.
things to do
Yeah.
somewhere else, right?
All right. Does anybody have any last notes before we wind up, wrap up? To be candid with everyone, I asked for those credits like, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, and they said yes. And then I never got a chance to, like, I'm just overwhelmed. I just, so I assume that they will be happy to say yes again. But yeah, okay. Fair enough. Sounds like that's a wrap for today. So it's nice to see everybody. See you on, we will have the community meeting this week. So you're all most welcome to join on Friday. And the newcomers call tomorrow as well. So, all right. See you then.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Right.